Welcome to the Class Business Podcast. I'm Krissy Monaghan, your host, and today we are joined by Helen Kenworthy, a strategic leader in alternative education and the driving force behind the powerful partnership supporting young people through creative, personalized learning pathways. Helen's work is all about helping those often described as brilliantly underestimated to re-engage, rebuild confidence and create meaningful futures. She's also the sponsor of Strategic Leader of the Year for the Class Business Awards, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So let's dive in. Helen, it's amazing to have you here with us today. For everyone who's watching on YouTube or listening in, please tell everyone who you are, what do you do, and where do you do it?
Hi, it's lovely to be here. I am Helen. I am Helen Kenworthy. There are many Helens, all the ballpark the same age, so you can kind of tell how old I am. I'm here because I lead a partnership. So if we go back in time, I'm at school, I'm quiet, I'm shy, wouldn't say boo to a goose. Didn't mind school. I had subjects that I flipping loved. But I was quiet, I was shy. I was brought up in a household where there was extra support needed because there was mental ill health. But school didn't step up. They didn't step in. They didn't support. I managed, I struggled. I am very proud of where I am. But school wasn't a good vehicle for me. So I trained in education. I trained in special education. I took on a role as lead in an alternative provision. I set up the English department and I ran the English department. And then one day they took on somebody from mainstream education in the office. Not sure why they did it. I don't think it was the best idea, but they did. And they started talking about making mainstream rules in this AP. And I watched the colour drain out of the kids' faces because suddenly they were being made to do things that they massively struggle to do in mainstream school. So it was one of those moments where you think, the only way to make this happen is to do it myself. So I set up an alternative education provider. We're not an alternative school because we refuse to register as a school, because if you register as a school, then you have to follow all the formal guidelines. So our focus is supporting the young people and meeting them where they are and putting the package together that works for them. And we get them to where the government and the world, etc., wants them to be, but we do it in a way that's right for the children, not necessarily right for the system. So that's the special educational needs academic side of it. Alongside school that didn't really work for me, I found drama. I joined a drama club and I was on stage living my best life. It was wonderful. It was where I felt my tribe was. It was where I felt joy and friendship. And because I'd therefore got lived experience, as in I knew that for me, the creative arts had made all the difference. They'd opened up the box. I'd come out and there was no going back in again. So because I'd got that lived experience, I decided to also set up a creative arts production company that's all about positive mental health and day-to-day toolkit for the kids, for the youngsters. So they come along and they, in a safe space, they share their ideas, they share their stories, and they build life skills, but also the creative safe space of having friends who get them. So those are the first two columns, the first two parts. And then I was really lucky. I was, by that point, bold and confident enough to reach out and start talking to people who I was really interested in, which were mainly in the creative arts. So I had opportunities to do work experience. I had opportunities to do wonderful jobs. I worked in the West End. I've worked in touring theatre. In fact, there's not a sort of theatre that I haven't worked in. And I again knew the difference it had made to me. And I remember back to when I was in school, when I was in secondary school, and the careers advisor telling me that I should be a bank clerk. Now, I've got no problem with bank clerks. Bank clerks are wonderful people, but it was never my bag. It was never my road. But they hadn't got to know me. They didn't have any idea what my strengths, what my skills were, etc. They didn't know what was going to make me happy. So I decided, blended in with everything else and all the progress I'd made, that what I wanted to do was make it possible for young people to actually be able to step into creative careers. The number of families that genuinely believe that you cannot make a living in the arts, it's a multi-billion pound, dollar, euro industry globally. And people are very happy and satisfied with fully functioning creative jobs. But also there are transferable skills within the arts. So I made a decision, having had a wonderful connection with a guy on LinkedIn. We created the third column. So we created another community interest company. And that company is all about creative careers and career platform. So that is the third part, where it's enabling young people to train and to understand what it is to work in the arts, across the arts, how jobs interconnect, how to make contacts, how to find work experience, how to actually find real jobs, but also to see where those transferable skills can take them to other jobs so that they can use their natural creativity to be out in marketing or product design or whatever it might be. So therefore, I land in the point where I've got the three columns, where there is the academic enabling, which is called Education Selection Box, the Creative Arts Production House, which is called RYTC Creatives, or the RYTC. And the third column is Give, Get, Go Education. And all three of them work as a jigsaw, as a jigsaw puzzle. I always wear a jigsaw puzzle piece on my necklace, because I firmly believe all of us are individuals and we all have a combination of jigsaw puzzle pieces making up who we are and our life and our careers, etc. And it's about putting the right combination together for you at that time. And it may that jigsaw puzzle may change in 6 months or next week or in 10 years' time. It depends on how we're progressing. And that's how the three columns work. They work together to meet the young people where they are, to pick up what their needs are, to understand what their needs are, and to use whichever combinations of those three columns to work together to build confidence, to have that all important self-esteem, to help the young people to be able to study academically so that they can have the things that society needs, that they can have their daily toolkit, but that they could also be ambitious and think about where they want to be in their lives in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years' time. And I've created what I call the creative methodology of those three things, which very much links to my mantra, which is, of course you can. Because if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. If you step into it believing you can do something, and with the right guidance and the right support and the right foundation, the right motivation, anything and everything is possible. So therefore, we come into it with those three columns, tweaking and readjusting in order to make sure that the young people believe and can live, of course I can, in whatever they do. That's a long introduction, isn't it?
I'm absolutely blown away, Helen. Like, that sounds incredible. I've got loads of questions. So, obviously, first of all, it sounds like you didn't have a great experience at school.
It was terrible.
So from that, actually running Provision, there must have been some sort of driving force in you that wanted to see some sort of change for young people to be able to access the education of like what meets their needs.
There was a campaign. I think it was last year, although time does blur a bit. There was a national campaign, Walk in Our Shoes, in which regionally, so every local authority the parents, the families, will take a pair of shoes from the young person from their family who has been failed by the system, and in front of every local authority building, there were streams of these pairs of shoes to show the number of young people who don't fit in with the mainstream. I mean, the mainstream is fine where it works for you, but the mainstream system that we work to now was set up in the 1950s, I think. It was set up for industrialisation. It was set up in order to have rote learning, and it was set up in order to make sure that people, particularly the ones who were going to be working in factories, etc., were used to and comfortable with and able to work productively in those situations. And work has changed. The world has changed. And young people, we don't have more people who are neurodiverse. It's simply that we understand it better. Dyslexia used to be called lazy learning, and children were punished. We need to move forward. We need to progress. We need to improve. We need to meet the young people where they are, and things need to change. And time after time after time, we have, and sorry for getting political, but more so often we have reshuffles where another person comes in and says, okay, this is what I think should happen. They haven't talked to the people in education usually. They just have ideas, and the people at coalface have to get on and make it work, which means that there's more work for them to do, which means that there's less time to actually be working with the children and making school interesting and accessible and progress positive, etc., etc. So too often the people who make the decisions aren't listening, aren't open to, and people are scared of flagging up and calling it out. And they're also often, for various reasons, don't feel able to boldly try and make the change. So we're on a mission. I'm on a mission to change education, to improve education, to celebrate all the things that young people are, to change all the ways that we look at them in terms of, rather than the negatives, look at the positives. If they can't learn in that way, if they can't sit in that way, if they need to fidget, there's a reason for it. So understanding them better is a positive. The fact that there are so many adults who are now realising that they have ADHD, and that's a positive because they understand how they need to work and how they need to motivate and how they need to work incrementally in steps, and that each step has an achievement. So they're not working towards this climbing the top of the mountain and feeling that that's unachievable, so they don't start kind of way. So it's about understanding the young people, and I insist on, me and everybody else in the team, wherever we are management wise, everybody hands-on works with the young people, because we need to keep up to date. We need to keep our relationships in. It's all about relationship building. It's all about deep diving and understanding the people, understanding the students you're working with, understanding that micro expression that you understand because you've been working with them for 6 months means that you know that they've learnt that thing, or you know that they're worried about that thing, or that you know that something has triggered that, which means you can step back and then you can come back to it. You can come back to it at a later point once you have worked around the thing that was the problem, or you can pick up the thing that's has connected with them on that day, celebrate that and build from that. So relationships are absolutely essential. And unfortunately, a lot of the mainstream sector doesn't have that opportunity enough, and that therefore we need to adjust, we need to change in order, as I say, to meet them where they are. And it's exactly the same principle with the creative arts, because by meeting them where they are and giving them a safe space and enabling them to understand that they can trust, that this is okay, that they can share, and it won't be judged, or it won't be used. So it's the positives of building the skills, whilst also the safe space so that they feel that they can relax. Because otherwise, and lots of adults do this too. So I actually work with grown-ups as well. Lots of adults you'll see have got their shoulders really up, which means that they're in a constant state of tension, which actually means that what's happening is that the vagus nerve is being constantly triggered, and they're in a constant state of self-defense. And until you can enable the relax, and then until you can therefore stop the vagus nerve cycle, but it's wonderful that we know so much more now about the nervous system and about the fact that the nervous system governs everything. The nervous system informs the brain, informs the body. So therefore, understanding that combination, which we never did before, is marvellous, because we can help towards the calming of the vagus nerve, and we can help towards the calming of the self-defense, and I'm in a safe space and I'm in a trusted space. And sometimes that's one-to-one, and sometimes it's in a big old group, because the group you're in works for you and enthuses about your ideas, and you really love sharing, and you love having a go at that person's idea because you did yours last term, for example. So it's that combination and that blend of the science and the personal, and the work towards the progress that I'm passionate about.
Like I said, you're doing incredible work. How do people access your services then? Because obviously, are you across the UK or are you localized?
So I'm based in Warwickshire, but the team is based all over the place, and as long as we can provide the service that young person needs, we can work anywhere. So we've got students at the moment in Northamptonshire, in Bristol, in Wales. That's at the moment. There are others, but I can't remember. So as long as what they need, as long as we can do an assessment, as long as we can make the relationship with the family, because the family is as important, if not more important, than the children. I mean, obviously the children are first loss and always, but if the parents are struggling, if the parents think that they're doing a rubbish job, or if the parents think they don't know what to do, and if they're giving themselves a hard time, then that creates even more of a problem for the child. So as long as we can do the assessment and we can support the parents, the family and the child in the way that's right for that child and that family, we can work anywhere. We could work internationally if that's what the family wanted. We work with a family at the moment that's actually touring the world, and we do that completely fine. So my main place is as in where people can find me is helenkenworthy.com, and I'm also quite active. Picking up ideas and saying what I think and suggesting improvements, etc. on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, obviously I'm under Helen Kenworthy, but you can find me under the Of Course You Can coach. Because that's my byline, because everything is Of Course You Can. So it's either helenkenworthy.com, and in there are links to Education Selection Box, OITC, and Give Get Go Education, as well as the socials. But you can also find me at LinkedIn, the Of Course You Can coach. Those are.
So do a lot of the children you work with, have they come out of the education system, or are they going to school and then you're supporting them, or is it they're out of the system and they're just getting support from you guys?
So we can, and over the years we have supported young people in any and all situations.
Right.
We focus, because of the also supporting the families. We focus a lot on education other than at school. So where they struggle and they cannot be in school.
Yeah.
So we focus on that a lot. where we become their entire provider. So as well as the learning, there's also the relational, the family support, etc. And we also do a lot at the moment of flexible education, where young people need to be outside of school for a part of their week in order to help them manage and progress. So we will often take students for specific projects where they come to us for the specific project, and they are allowed to be out of school with us for that specific project, and then they go back into school for the rest of their curriculum. But the key thing with flexi education is that obviously the way mainstream works is that the school is responsible for the progress of that child. And particularly pinning into the core curriculum. So the school would be understandably unhappy about just waving goodbye to the child and having no idea what was going on, and it risking impacting on their progress in school, because the school would then be blamed for the fact that the child had fallen behind. So what we do is we do the inevitable planning and evaluation, but we create ongoing reports where we're showing how what we're doing feeds into and supports the core curriculum, so that they know for that key stage, for that position of the young person, that outside of school they're still doing all these key elements, but they're blended into the project. And we therefore document how the young person is progressing, because then the school can include that in their formal file on that young person. And it means that we're working as a partner, not just with the young person, because the one of the key changes that needs to happen is that as a community we work together supporting them. So as in the school works with the AP, works with the family, works with the social prescriber, works with the doctor, so that everybody is happily sharing that information, and everybody is supported because everybody knows what's happening, but also the family and the child is completely supported because nobody's trying to ring fence their information.
Yeah. It's such valuable work. And does that link up with the middle bit where you're talking about the creative and the careers in career? But do people feed? Do they naturally feed into that, or are they a separate group of people that get involved in that work?
So where it's relevant, it naturally feeds into that. So where a young person enjoys storying, where a young person enjoys being creative, then absolutely they would feed into that part. Sometimes actually the career part is a nicer, gentler way of them learning some really important key skills that are essential in any job you'd go into. So it's a much gentler step into being able to go and apply for a job, because you've learned it in a way that's much more organic for you. So lots of them do filter through, and that then naturally is part of their jigsaw puzzle. But there are young people who come to that careers part completely separately, because they found us, and it's an intentionally much more affordable route than drama school or a lot of the other things. I mean, it's designed.
I'm very interested in that, Helen. Just, I mean, from what you're talking about, like my daughter has, she's dyslexic, and doesn't particularly like school, but we're here in Scotland. I think actually we're very blessed in Scotland because the education system is slightly different to is in England. And they do a lot of work. But she loves creative. She goes to Stagecoach every weekend, performing arts. We've just got her into radio, so she's now learning about radio. She loves art, drama. So I can see like that's where the skill sets her strengths are. Whereas the other side, she's like, okay, I don't really like doing that part. But I think it's amazing because what you're creating is like these outlets for young people to go and explore. Whereas I don't know if we're similar age, but I got the same like career advisor. You're going to be a PE teacher. I'm like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. That's not my thing. And you didn't really get any guidance, did you? It was just you showed up, you turned up to school. And I remember my brother, again, dyslexic. I think he just didn't even come back to school and they didn't even care. Do you know what I mean? It was like he left probably about 14, 15 and no one probably noticed, because at that day the education system was like, troublemaker. We don't want them in there. Because he couldn't sit still, we couldn't focus, everything else. But there has been changes, like you said, and there is more awareness, but still not enough being done.
Totally. And actually, my partner in Give Get Go Education is the most amazing guy called Tony Klinger, and he is amazing. He's an international filmmaker. He learned from his dad. Get Carter, the infamous film with Michael Caine, is one of their portfolio. He is phenomenal. I can't remember the stats, but somewhere in the world, there are films from his portfolio, from that family's portfolio, being played somewhere in the world at all times, 24/7. He's prolific. And when he and I first met, we said that clearly our attitude and our values were the same, and that we were determined to create something together. And therefore, the film aspect is written and set up by Tony. So my background is theatre, so I run the theatre part of it. There are 4 parts of that package, of that platform. But he has written and he presents. He's the one who has designed the whole of the film part of that, having written and delivered film studies for 3 different universities over his career, and the almost film school, one of them, certainly one of them. He had 100% employment rate for all the students who were at that, because he knows how the industry works, and he knows how the relationships are made, etc., etc. So we've got some absolutely phenomenal people that are part of all the different parts that are out there working with the students, enabling them, designing the content, etc., etc. So yes, it's the universe sends you the people that you need to be able to do the work that you want to do.
Well, I'm definitely going to be checking that out for my daughter, for sure. For sure. Yeah, definitely. So obviously you talk about doing a lot of work, like you're talking about partnerships, working with schools in partnerships, and obviously you're sponsoring Strategic Leader of the Year for the Class Business Awards. What advice would you give to a class business owner who's looking to develop like those strategic partners, like to work with schools, to work in those leadership? What advice would you give them? Because a lot of them are in the delivery, like they're out delivering teaching classes, and then they've got to make that jump to actually engage with a partner, a strategic partner. How do they do that as a leader? How do they step into leadership roles? So
I don't think that it's any different in any industry. So my answer is that we all have our own style. We all have our own style of delivery. We all have our own style of talking. We all have our own style of engagement. So my advice would be to do the research on who they like in terms of the work that they're doing, their style, who their network is, and then reach out to those people to see whether or not there can be mentoring, to see whether or not there can be some kind of a relationship going on, because we learn brilliantly from the people that we connect with better. And that you're never going to learn everything all in one go. And actually you shouldn't, because the industry changes, things adapt, tools improve, systems improve. So research in the first place to work out who you like the look of, where you like their style of delivery, as I say, their style of talking, their style of connection, the sorts of people that they are in touch with. Reach out to them and then work on being in rooms with those people, so that you can learn. You can learn by osmosis, but you can also learn by seeing them in action, seeing them in practice, but also you can develop the relationships with the other people who are also in that room. I'm a big believer in mentors. I'm a big believer in business mentors. I don't think I know of anybody, no matter how big their company is, no matter how much money they've got coming in, who doesn't have a business mentor, at least one. They can change, they can adapt. You can. I mean, look at tennis players. You go from one coach, you change your style of playing, and then you move on to the next one. It's about the relationship. So having mentors, having coaches, having the hive mind, having somebody who you can trust to listen to your ideas, hold your ideas, and help to guide and enable you to try out your ideas in a safe way, knowing that there's never going to be 100% guarantee. You try things out and sometimes things go wrong. We learn more from when they do go wrong than from when they're all perfect. But then you learn from that collection of processes, until you reach a point where you think, okay, this is how I want to do it. I'm going to now run that way for the next however long. And then once you get to the end of that period, you then reevaluate, because reevaluating, rebuilding, restructuring is part of good leadership and part of good business. It's about communication and evaluating the success of what you're doing.
Helen, honestly, you are full of the knowledge. I definitely know that my audience are going to love meeting you when we get together on the 10th of October for the Class Business Awards Day.
Yeah.
I will make sure, everyone, that all the links so you can connect with Helen are in this vlog, in the podcast, and it will go out on the socials so people can connect with you, particularly because I know in the children's activities space, they're working very hard on inclusion. They're working I know so many people have families who got, neurodiverse children who are trying to get help for their families and for their children as well. So I know they're definitely going to want to connect with you after this. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and
it's been lovely, and I can't wait to meet you in the autumn.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm just inspired about all the great things you're doing. You actually need to apply for an award as well, to showcase to everyone what you are doing there. Thank you so much for your time. And if anyone is watching this and this story resonates with you and you would love to help a fellow business owner with this work, please share this podcast with them, tag them in, connect with Helen. She's here to build those relationships, like she said, and to as many of you as possible, because she's got a mission that she wants to change it. So she needs everybody to help us do that. But thank you so much for your time today, Helen.
Same to you. Have a lovely rest of your day.